I'm feeling inspired today. NCIS has inspired me so. I'm going to give half of my review here on my channel, and then I'm going to give the other half to a friend of mine who is going to post it on their channel. So that way you guys will all go over and watch their That'll work, right? Yeah. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 20, Episode 10, Too Many Cooks. So, apparently we've got another situation where I have to watch the other two shows to be able to see how this all comes to an end. Am I going to do that? No. Why would I? I don't watch those other two shows. Why would I jump in to this random episode in their seasons when I have no idea about the characters, about their stories? I don't know any of it. So a crossover to me doesn't matter. And I get that if people are watching all three, there's probably some cool stuff in there for them. But I'm not one of those people. And so anybody that only watches one of the shows, maybe there are some characters on the other shows that they just can't get into. Maybe they've tried and they just don't like the story, or they don't like the setups for those shows. Maybe the shows aren't as good as the original NCIS. I don't know. But you're assuming that everybody watches all of your shows with episodes like this, when you not only have characters from the other shows show up on this one, but then you also have these moments where now you have to watch episodes on the other shows to get the full story. That's stupid. Now, even though I'm not going to watch it, I once again did a plot synopsis lookup, and I gotta say, a lot of it I don't think I would have had fun with, because there are references to the other two shows that I would not have understood. Like, one of the characters on NCIS LA apparently is part of this Simon Williams thing, which turns out to be a CIA thing where they send all these people to go assassinate problem citizens or something like that. Apparently he was a part of it, on the guy on NCIS LA. I don't know anything about him. So that would have probably been a huge for anybody who watches the show, but I don't. So it would have meant nothing to me. There's also a character named Hetty, who's the old woman on LA, who I guess at this point is not a part of the team or something, and she contacts them. So there are several things that just would have went over my head. Same thing with NCIS Hawaii. I didn't see anything specifically tied to them, but I'm assuming there are things talked about. There are character moments that I would have had no idea about because I don't watch the show. And it's why crossovers like this are stupid, especially for shows that are this big. You know, it's one thing whenever, like on the Arrowverse, they did their crossovers. Yeah, it can still be a problem to do that because not everybody's going to watch like Supergirl or Batgirl. Some people may have only been there for Arrow and Flash. But at the very least, the amount of seasons you would have to watch to catch up is not that much. It's one or two. You could even watch just a few episodes per season to kind of get an idea of the characters and what's going on. For this, I mean, this is, what is it, 10 seasons, I think, of LA, and they're in their second season of Hawaii at this point. That's a lot to try to watch to get caught up and understand probably some of these backstories and get a true sense of what's going on with some of these characters and why the one guy from LA being a part of this CIA thing might actually be a big deal. Like that, I just don't get that. But the other thing too is it really, really now makes the first episode for this season even more frustrating. Because if this is going to be your big crossover event, these 3 episodes, one for each show, now having a crossover with NCIS Hawaii at the beginning of the season to wrap up the story that was mostly NCIS focused, that makes even less sense. Because you're already doing a crossover with NCIS Hawaii later this season. Why would you also do it at the beginning of the season to end a story that you built up last season? That makes no damn sense whatsoever. And so now I'm even more pissed off. You know, if you're going to do crossover events trying to bring over the NCIS fan base to watch your show and get that viewership up, if you're really going to do that twice in one season, you got a problem. The fact that it's canceled now, I don't know why it is. I just saw that it was. The fact that it's canceled tells me that what they're doing here is not enough to save it. It means it's not a good show, more than likely. So the fact that you have to do 2 crossovers is probably a sign of things to come. But as far as this episode, I've already spent so much time just ranting about the idea of a crossover. But this episode in particular, meh. You know, once again, you got this character that we've never met before. And so because of that, they have to show what a great person he is by having all these people talk about how much he impacted their lives. Tell, don't show, right? We don't want to show any of the nice moments that he had with all these people or showed them going through the academy or whatever. That would have been way too difficult. So let's take the easy route and just have everybody talk about all their experiences with them. That's fun, isn't it? It's just so much fun. But the mystery itself is fine, I guess. I've seen something like this before. Obviously, I didn't know it was going to be a CIA thing, but I've seen this type of thing, the Simon Williams stuff, where it's like we're all Simon Williams. So you never really know who the true mastermind is because everybody has the same name in the group and they all basically surround this one guy and keep his identity a secret. Now, the fact that it's a CIA operation, I don't know what exactly that means. Like, I'm sure there are some details that I missed whenever I was looking up the synopsis, but I think the setup, at least for it, is a decent setup. The fact that Jimmy and Tennant got taken at the end of the episode, a little weird, a little out of nowhere, and I guess sets up for kind of an intense moment in the second episode, which gets undercut by the fact that they actually got taken in by the CIA, so I think they're fine. They're not going to kill off characters from one show and another show. Like, that's not, Jimmy's not going to die in a crossover event. That would be stupid. Also, you got the moment whenever McGee looks like he might have committed treason. It's like, no, he didn't. And the fact that anybody suspects McGee is kind of laughable. Like, he's such a straight and narrow type of agent. Come on, really? If anybody was going to be framed, it had to be McGee. That makes no sense. And of course, it's very easily wrapped up by him just being like, oh yeah, he took my phone. Oh. Like, if this were any other criminal, I'm sure people would be like, okay, come on. Right, he just took your phone and used your password to get into it? Sure. But because it's McGee, it's like, yeah, okay, we believe that. He took your phone while it was unlocked and got in there, got your passwords. 100% believable. But it just felt like an unnecessary detour, and then almost immediately we're back on, no, this guy is actually the one that took all of these documents. And I think the reason he took them as well is like for a good reason, because as much as everybody was praising what a good guy he is and basically a no nonsense type of teacher, of course he's not going to do it for a bad reason. It had to be for a good reason. So he like took him to, he was like protect the people on the list maybe that were involved in this CIA program. I don't know. This was an experiment gone entirely wrong. And again, you're not going to get me to watch your other shows just to see how this wraps up. I'm just not going to, because I'm not interested enough. And also, like I said, there are going to be storylines and things that happen with these other characters on the other shows that I'm not going to know about. I'm not going to understand or comprehend why these are big moments or why those are funny moments. I don't know these characters. I don't know their stories. So this only works if you are 100% sure that everybody's watching all three of these shows. I would say probably not. And the fact that you're trying to push people to go watch those shows tells me that you also know that the viewership is not as high on those other two shows. This is not the way to get people to watch them. The way to get people to watch them is to make good shows. And I'm guessing they probably haven't done that, more than likely. So anyways, that's about it for this one. Hopefully it's the last crossover this season. If I get a third one, oh boy, I might go a little nuts. But we'll move on to the next episode. I'll see you guys there. And now, episode 11, Bridges. This one was fine. I do like getting to learn a little bit more about Parker's history, getting to see this woman that he was apparently first in love with when he was younger, and then her son being involved in all of this. The case itself was interesting, but also not well paced, in my opinion. Like, the whole thing with Ashley turning out to be a spy who was trying to get information out of the kid, Ryan, because she thought he was working like as a government agent, I think, for the, I want to say he was saying he was CIA. I don't remember that plot point now. It was just kind of interesting to see a con man conning a spy who was conning him to get information, but then finds out apparently he's not who he says he is, and then that means she now has no information. I don't know. It's kind of a fun little twist on a case that we've seen before in some ways. But unfortunately, the pacing was off because we don't find out about Ashley until basically the end of the episode. And it goes from that to now we're having Ryan pose as bait, and then her parents show up, and then they capture the parents. And that all happens within like probably 3 minutes. So that was way too quick. Also, I will say, they do the cliche of the con man falls in love with the mark, which has just been done to death. They also add the cliche that I've already talked about this season, where the one Todd guy, who I think was Ryan's handler or boss or something, he incriminates himself unnecessarily because nobody's mentioned anything about identity theft. And then all of a sudden, McGee's like, you maybe get like 30 years. Oh, what? That's too long for identity theft. Nobody mentioned identity theft. Why do they have bad guys do this? Does this happen often in real life? Do criminals typically reveal that they are guilty of a crime by owning up to what they did without it being mentioned at all? Like some guy murdered somebody, like stabbed him to death, and they go in and the police are like, we're gonna have to arrest you for killing that guy. What? I never stabbed him. Nobody said anything about stabbing him. Does that happen often? Because it feels like, based on what I see in these shows like NCIS, Elementary, even a couple of superhero shows do it, it feels like that's just such a common cliche to have, of having them not mention anything. It's one thing if they were like, oh yeah, you shot the guy. Nah, he was stabbed. How do you know that? I don't think that would be realistic, but I could see that being maybe more so what happens rather than what we see here more often than not, which is nobody mentions identity theft at all. And all of a sudden he's just like, oh, no, that's too long for identity theft. It's just stupid. I'm kind of sick of it. But as far as Joy is concerned, I don't know if she's going to be sticking around or not. Decent moments with her and Parker. I feel like I'd have to see him a little bit more before I really got a sense of whether or not I actually like a possible relationship between the two of them. Because she even says at one point that Vivian came to talk to her because she wanted to see the woman that Parker never got over. It feels very clear that they're trying to possibly build something up here. I feel like the relationships in the show typically don't go anywhere fast. Delilah shows up maybe twice a season. Even with like Bishop and Torres, they really took their time putting them together. And we even saw with Jimmy and Knight, they took forever to actually acknowledge that there was something going on between them. Still feel like it's a weird relationship that sort of came out of nowhere. But even though it came out of nowhere, it still felt like it took forever before they were actually a thing. So I just don't know what to expect with Parker and Joy from this point on. But on Jimmy and Knight, we do have some relationship drama with the two of them, and I'm just not all that interested because it involves Brina, who I still think was royally screwed over by the fact that the writers used her as a crutch to be like, hey guys, COVID was bad, so we're gonna kill off one of our main character spouses to show COVID was serious. And I just hate it for that. And first of all, I hate the fact that in this fictional show we have to deal with something that happened in real life anyway. Killing off a random character who was not a bad character and meant a lot for Jimmy, and now they're putting him together with somebody else pretty quickly after, too. I'm pretty sure there has been a decent span of time. Like, I feel like it's been at least a couple of years, maybe. Could be less, I don't know. But yeah, Brina's death is something that I'm not really ever going to look at as a serious thing or something that I find interesting, because it feels like it was just a crutch for the writers to try to tug at the heartstrings of anybody who did lose somebody to COVID. That's a bullshit, easy way of trying to make a connection with your audience. Now, obviously, being somebody who didn't lose anybody to COVID, maybe I'm not the right person to be talking about it. But in my mind, this is not the way you handle that. To kill a spouse of a main character off screen and then have them talk about what it meant to them later just feels lazy. But with all that being said, that's about all for this episode. It's a pretty simple one to get through. Thankfully, not bad. I feel like we've hit a point in the season now where I'm not as frustrated watching these episodes, obviously barring the last one with the crossover, but that has its own separate issues to deal with. But these episodes are kind of getting decent, I guess. They have some interesting points to them. They have some moments that actually get me invested, but unfortunately there are still flaws in every episode that sort of take me out of it a little bit too. I will take that over some of the shit that we got earlier this season. So with all that being said, on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And finally, episode 12, Big Rig. So this one was fine. I think the only real issue I had with it was the ending for Sawyer. Felt a little too simplistic. I realized that the guy he killed, the FBI agent he killed, was corrupt. There's still a problem there, like, how can you prove that it was self-defense, that he was trying to kill you and you killed him instead? I just feel like that was sort of glossed over, that he just killed an FBI agent. But I guess the point was that this guy was corrupt, so there was an explanation for it. Whether or not the FBI believed it, I guess, is not that important, but I feel like it should have been a little bit more important. But all of it was pretty straightforward. I do find it kind of interesting that Torres and Sawyer are apparently basically best friends now, which is very weird considering where they were the last time we saw them. But most of it, I think, makes sense. Why Sawyer was lying, finding out about the GHB. He says, he really wanted to focus in and take the guys down. But in truth, I think they could have even made it more so about him knowing that if the FBI found out that he had a personal connection to this drug that they're selling, they probably would have taken him off the case. And he didn't want to see that happen. So I think they could have focused a bit more on that instead of just making it about, he wanted to do it himself and take it all on himself. I feel like that's a little bit weaker as far as character decisions. The other one makes more sense to me. But ultimately, the one mystery in this episode, who the big boss was, wasn't too surprising. She was really the only other character that got any screen time. Unfortunately, very predictable. That's kind of what I expect when I get to season 20 of a show, is the formula is going to get a bit predictable in the end. I guess the other thing that I did have an issue with, it was something that was not bad. I just don't understand why they decided to do this. The whole thing with McGee. Like, I know it's the side story in this one, which is why I'm not more upset by it, but it feels really, really pointless. Like, we kept cutting away to it, and I just kind of tuned out anytime they were talking about it. I'm just like, all right, where's this all going to go? Is he going to go on there and lose? Is he going to go on there and win? But then for some reason he can't continue? Like, I don't know. This feels really pointless. What's it going to lead to? Show gets canceled. Then what was the point of it? Like, again, it's a side story, so I'm not as upset by it. But it really is extra pointless to not even have him go on the show. Like, how much more interesting would that have been if he had gone on the show? Why not? Why not have that? It feels kind of dumb. But again, it's a side story, so who really cares, to be honest? But all in all, 3 more episodes. Obviously, the crossover one was a little frustrating for my own personal thoughts about the current crossovers. But the other 2 were fine. Decent cases, decent action, moments of intrigue, and then, as I said, still some problems, still some issues with the writing. Sometimes it feels lazy, sometimes it feels idealist, which, again, we're in season 20, so that's not too surprising for me. I just do wish that maybe they just took a little bit more time and a little bit more thought went into some of these stories, because the ideas are there. It just feels like every episode there's something that they don't fully think about or don't fully flesh out. And so you get to those moments and it just gets a little groan worthy and eye roll worthy whenever they do something stupid that you just look at and go, really? You couldn't find another way around this? But with all that being said, those are my thoughts on these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on here, as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.